everybody. I took this job. They created this new job at Hawaii Investment Ready for a position, and finally stepped out of being a social entrepreneur to take a job at a nonprofit. So this is actually the first time I'll be presenting on this, so you guys are kind of my guinea pigs. And I also was listening to the presentations before, so I added a couple slides in to maybe give you guys some clarification on some of the impact investing side of the questions that you guys had. So before you guys start taking pictures and everything, if you guys want to get a copy of this, it's right here. So get that LYHIR-strategy. I'll leave that access to this for a few weeks. All right, so I want to start first with some basics of what is a social enterprise, right? So social enterprise is a business that is created with the primary purpose of addressing a social or environmental need. That is its core. That is why you start it. That is what it exists. If you're not doing this, it is not a social enterprise. And like Mark said earlier, financial viability and profitability is important for you to continue to deliver the impact and the primary purpose of what your enterprise is. So it's not to say that you just do it for the love. Like, you got to figure out a financial model to keep it sustainable, or you're not going to be able to deliver your impact, and then you are doing nothing. So just to give you a couple of examples, one of the companies I co-founded about 10 years ago, Wavy TV, is it's social enterprise that is created to leverage the power of media to revitalize Hawaiian language and culture. That was why we started it, and so we had to figure out a business model to support that. Another one is a friend of mine, Amp Innovation. She creates scalable energy solutions and appliances for people who live under $4 a day. So she created a business model to serve, she's in Africa right now, and she creates solar products that charge batteries, to use appliances that people can use to start micro enterprises, live their lives off of, and just be able to improve the quality of their life. So these are just some examples. So social enterprises versus traditional businesses, some similarities is, like what Mark emphasized, can't emphasize it enough. What problem are you solving, or what need are you solving of the customer? It's the same thing for a social enterprise and a traditional business. The difference is that social enterprises create business models to be able to stay true to that primary purpose of their impact. So questions about impact investing came up, so I just kind of wanted to give you guys a sense of what that looks like. So this is a kind of a spectrum of asset classes for impact investing. On the far end here is grants. So from an investor's perspective, you gotta think about it from an investor's perspective. As you move out from holding your money in cash, it gets more risky this way and it goes more risky this way. So equities on that side, grants on this side. So most of the time when we're dealing with impact investing for folks like you, you're more than likely going to be somewhere on this end of the spectrum. If it's usually like nonprofits, for-profits that are doing really high social mission stuff, will usually be on this side. This side is more for their endowment, for their corpus, what kind of investments they're making into the market that will provide a mission-related return. So all of these are mission-related, right? So if you're an impact investor, they're looking for blended returns. They're looking for not just a financial return per se, less on this side, more on that side, a financial return more on that side. But they're always looking for the impact. And every investor, whether it's a family office or a high net worth or individual, foundation, fund, they all have their lens and they all have their focus of what kind of impact they want to invest in. And just to give you a sense of kind of the challenge that we have, so like one of the things you guys talked about earlier was like there's this shift towards social enterprise and this shift towards impact in entrepreneurship. And I think the reason for that is because everybody knows that this world has big challenges. And there are a lot of people who want to get involved in helping to solve those challenges. But right now, there's a problem because if this is all of the investable assets out there in the marketplace, only that is in philanthropy and charitable giving, and only that is in government. All the other investable assets, you know, in the public markets, the private markets, you know, how everyone is their 401ks and all of those types of things, that's the rest of it. So the goal for us on the impact investing side is to shift as many of these blues to impact. Because if we don't shift these blues to impact, it's going to be business as usual. And we know that where that gets us, right? So this gives you a sense of the scale of the market that we're dealing with. Okay, so back to the point. So what is a strategy? The strategy is basically the framework that is going to help you to make the decisions to win the game of your business. Okay. So we're gonna I'll kind of go through some of the high level stuff and kind of the components of what a strategy looks like for a social enterprise. At the foundation of it is your purpose. This is your mission. This is the big why. This is your big idea. This is like, why am I creating this product, or why am I creating this app, or why am I creating this project or program to address a need, right? What is the social impact that you're trying to create? What is the social or environmental problem that you are trying to address? Like, this is where everybody starts, right? This is how you develop your mission. And this is the foundation for everything else that you will do. If you don't have a clear sense of this, if you don't know if I really want to make money, or I really want to do this, like what is, because like you can be like, oh, I want to create this product, and you know, it can be good for kids in their learning. But in the back of your mind, you're saying, I really need to make a lot of money. Right? And you have schizophrenia of that sort. Like, you have to be absolutely crystal clear as to what your intentions are when you develop your purpose and your big idea. So once you kind of get a sense of that, then you can create your impact model. Right? Here's the problem that I'm trying to solve, and here is my theory. Here's my idea and my frameworks for being able to address that problem, right? So in here we have tools like theory of change and theory of transformation. We have different types of impact models, value propositions, all those types of things that you can develop to help to establish your impact model. So once you kind of have these two, right? Like, that's the foundation of a social enterprise. You really need to be clear on these things and get these and a pretty good sense of what they are so that you can build on top of them. Because these right here, when you clearly understand the problem you're trying to solve, and when you clearly understand how you're going to connect your actions to address that problem, or how you're going to connect your actions to your mission, like that is the absolute foundation that you need to have set, so that when you build on top of it, the decisions that you make, the approaches that you take, everything aligns back to these. Because if you don't align it back to this, you're going to go off course. So once you have this figured out, then you can start to look at what does the market look like? What's out there? Who are my competitors? Who's offering what? What kind of money is out there in the marketplace to support something like this? Who might pay for it? Who might be my customers? What problems do my customers have? How am I solving the problems that my customers have? Right? And so once you get an understanding of that, you really can start to refine your product and solution. The big mistake that people make is they start here. I want to do this, here's my idea. And then they try and reverse engineer everything else after that. And then you have a faulty foundation. You may have a general sense of this, but you need to go back and start here. And not get locked into like tunnel vision of, I needed to do it this exact way. There's tremendous amount of learning and foundation building here that will get you to something that is actually potentially viable, right? Because through here, you'll start to figure out not just what the problem is, whose needs am I solving, who are my customers and supporters, who are the early adopters, what kind of money is out there in this marketplace, so that you can kind of start to get a sense of what my cost might be, what my revenue model might be, all of those types of things, right? And then you adjust your solution based upon that, right? And from there, when you have this set, and again, so I'm going to point out, like, this is a dynamic process. You know, it's not like I'm going to articulate this, and then I'm going to build this, and then I'm going to build this, and then it's going to be static. It's always a feedback loop. And I'll talk about that in a sec. But once you come to the point where, okay, I think I have a viable product. It's solving a problem. I have a decent sense of what the customers are like and what problems I'm solving. I have an idea of what their cost structure is. I have an idea of what the revenue model is. I have an idea of what the market looks like. And you know, you start to have all of these things swirling, and you go, I think there's something there, right? Then you can start to go, okay, if this is my product and this is my business model, what are the things that I can identify that will tell me if I'm being successful or not, right? Like, what are my goals and how do I measure them? Mark made a point about like understanding like the metrics of what, like when he talked about the social venture side. Being able to have clear goals and metrics is absolutely key for you to get any funding from an impact investor. That's one of the first things they're going to look at. Like, what is your impact? What are your goals? How are you measuring them? And then show me your financials. And if that makes sense, then they're going to go back and go, what's your leadership team? What expertise do you have, right? How do I know that you have the ability to meet what you're saying you're going to be able to meet? So once you have your goals and your metrics, then you come up with your strategies. What are the core ways that I'm going to be able to achieve these goals and metrics? And then finally, at the level is like, okay, what are we going to do to achieve those strategies? Most times in business, like traditional businesses, is here, right? This extra part is the and for social enterprise. And then there's feedback loops, right? So, as you're going through your business, you're going to do activities to align to your strategies, that align to your goals and metrics, and then you're gonna get outputs, and you're gonna be like, well, we're hitting the goals here, so let's do more of this, or we're not hitting the goals there, so why is that happening? Let's go and change some of our strategies and activities. And this is a constant feedback loop, right? So this is why the goals and metrics are important, because it's going to tell you whether or not whether your activities and strategies are being successful. And then at a less frequent clip, I think you need to go back and really look at these, right? So, am I meeting my goals and metrics for my impact model? Yes or no? Right? And if it's no, it's like, okay, why? What's going on in the market that I've learned about? How can I address or adapt or iterate my product or solution? And will that deliver me better results in my goals and metrics? So, oftentimes when we're working in social enterprise, it's very complex problems. It's often systemic problems, deeply rooted ones, high number of stakeholders. So when you're dealing in a dynamic environment like that, the chances of you really understanding that environment at day 0 or in startup phase is 0. 0. Like, you have to try, and you have to learn, and you have to iterate, and you need a structure in place to enable you to have those feedback loops so that you can evaluate and iterate your product and your service and your offering. Because if you don't, you're just going to die a miserable death. Right? You're going to invest all this time, you're not going to take a paycheck for a while, and then you're going to fail. Right? And the hard part about social enterprises is they die a slower death. They die a slower, more painful death than a traditional business. Because in a VC world, they're going to cut you off, you're gone. Office is going to empty out. money's not there, the revenue's not there, boom, you're done. It's quick execution. In social enterprise, the mission is good. People love the mission. There's a heart part of it, right? And so, people will continue to help you a little bit here and there, and you're going to struggle. People are going to be like, your work is so good and meaningful, and it's going to keep you going for a little bit longer. But you're just dying a painful death. It's funny, but it's terrible. Like, how many nonprofits out there? How many nonprofits out there that are struggling, right? Chasing grant money, struggling, cutting staff, this and that, but they stay alive because the mission is good. So don't fall into that trap. Put the rigor into your business model and into your strategy to allow you to know whether you're being successful or not. All right, so these are the things you need to get right early on if you want to be successful. Donovan hit it. You need the team. And with for-profits and nonprofits, you can have a board. With nonprofits, you have to have a board or an advisory board, right? You want this people with the skill sets, the expertise, the passion, the agency, right? The network to be able to help maximize the success rate of your big idea, right? You need to have a revenue model, because if you can't figure out who's going to pay for it, kind of dead in the water. Again, measurement and evaluation. Key. And messaging and communications. If you are not able to clearly articulate what your purpose, impact, and how you're going to measure that, what your goals are and your measures are, if you cannot tell that story in a simple way, then your funders aren't going to understand it either. They're coming across so many different deals coming across their desk. Grant applications, impact deals, like if you're not clear and it's not easy to understand, then you're just going to be fighting an uphill battle and wondering why, I have a great idea, why can't everybody fund it, right? It's because you don't have the rigor, you don't have the story that goes along with it, right? Mark, you made a great point. When you're testing your idea, don't ask your friends and family. Because they're going to be like, oh, this is great. I'm going to use you as an example, sorry. Right? Like, educating our kids and on INA-based, and through an INA-based program, that's great. You should definitely do it, right? But how are you going to fund it? How are you going to pay for it? Who's going to pay for it, right? So, how much time do I got? 45 minutes? So we got time. No, we'll work through it. So I'll go through the bottom two, the foundational stuff a little bit, and use some examples. And then there's a framework that maybe we can play with after to help you guys kind of start your journey down this path of developing a strategy for your businesses. So like I said, so this is this, right? The purpose part, okay, down here. So we'll spend some time looking at these two for a second. So this is so the purpose is the why, right? Like, why are we doing this? What problem are we solving? Why am I going to spend the next 5 to 10 years of my life, building this business out, right? And your mission is really the statement of what you're going to achieve over the long run. So let's use the example, right? So OED our mission was to leverage the power of media to uplift the Hawaiian language and culture, right? So this is what we wanted to accomplish in the long run. We want to uplift the Hawaiian language and culture through media. So you kind of get a sense just from this one sentence of what we're about, right? So one of the tools that we use that I'm going to be using for Hawaii Investment Ready is the theory of transformation. A lot of times people in impact use theory of change, but I feel like the theory of change misses two key components, and that's your intentionality and your values. I think those things are core. Having gone through and built a couple of social enterprises myself and working with other social entrepreneurs, really being clear about your intentionality and values in relation to your impact model is critical because it helps you to set the foundation, and all of the decisions, all of the strategies, all of the goals that you build on top of that impact model will help you. Like when you come to that decision point, should we do this or do that, or not do this or not do that? If it doesn't align back to this theory of transformation and your intentionality and your values and the focus of what you're trying to work on, like, no. Saying no to something is going to be one of the hardest things that you're going to learn as an entrepreneur, especially a social entrepreneur. So, a theory of transformation, this is the framework we're working with now. So, first thing to do is to identify what the current state of the problem is. Then, you identify what the future or ideal state of it is, right? So there's the problem and there's the opportunity. And how you get from the current state to the future state is the crux of your transformation. And that's your impact. Okay, so let's use an example. Let's use OAVTV for example. Okay? So when we started in 2008, there was a lack of Hawaiian media content on TV. This was like pre-Facebook, right? YouTube was kind of just getting going. So digital and streaming and those types of things were very nascent. So TV was the big screen, right? There was no dedicated home for Hawaiian content. Everybody who was creating Hawaiian content was just trying to find a place for it. So Kamehameha Schools was producing Imua TV at the time, and it went from OC16 to Olelo to all over the place. You know, Merry Monarch is on one channel. You know, like, what's some other one? Song Contest is on another channel, and you know, maybe some Hawaiian language learning stuff is on Olelo. But it was all over the place. And there wasn't very much of it. And there was also at the time, you could probably count on maybe one hand, native Hawaiian filmmakers or media makers at the time who could actually produce TV content. So when we looked at the problem, we go, oh man, how are we going to leverage media to uplift the Hawaiian language and culture? Like, what would it look like? What would success look like for us? So success for us was that there's more and there's a variety of Hawaiian content, that the content is easily accessible by our audience, and that Native Hawaiians are telling our own stories. Because what was happening in 2008, because there was a lack of Hawaiian media makers, people who were making Hawaiian content were hiring people from outside of Hawaii or hiring people from outside of the Hawaiian community. So we really wanted to make an emphasis of us telling our own stories. So when we looked at how do we get from the current state to the ideal state, it was about content creation, distribution, and training. So that was the crux of the transformation for us to get from current state to future state. Now, when you look at this theory of transformation, right, you can kind of get a sense of our intentionality and our values, right? So our intentionality is, you know, we want to see Hawaiian language and Hawaiian culture uplifted, right? We want to see that done through media, and you can see like us telling our own stories is a value, right? Us, you know, uplifting our culture is a value, right? Us making Hawaiian language stuff available to people easy and free is a value, right? So all the decisions, all of the goals, the strategies, the metrics, the approaches in this impact area for us were guided in that frame. So this is the framework for us as we developed our business. So there it is, right? So how do we do that, right? So one, increase the quantity of Hawaiian media content. Just make stuff. We were making Aha'i Olelo Ola, which is the Hawaiian language news show on KGMB and a half-hour program that we put on OAVTV. You know, we found all the other Hawaiian media makers, Nomako Kaina, Kamehameha Schools, Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and we said, hey, give us all your content and we'll put it all in one place so we'll be surrounded by other Hawaiian content. And they gave it to us for very low cost. And yeah, so we just made a whole bunch of stuff and we acquired a bunch of stuff. So when we were making stuff, we were training Hawaiians. So in the beginning, we had non-Hawaiians helping us to make stuff, but part of the deal for them to work with us was to train our young guys. Train young Hawaiians who are competent in Hawaiian language and competent in Hawaiian culture, who had those competencies, to then give them the technical skills to be able to create media. And then we increased the accessibility of Hawaiian content. We got a digital cable station, we got a website, we started to use Facebook, right? And so we tried to make it as easy as possible for our audience to find our content. And in doing that, we also trained Hawaiians in how to do marketing, social media, distribution, media management, all of those things. So as we were going, all of these things were, this stuff right here, the crux of our transformation, was baked into our strategies and our goals and our activities, right? Any questions? We can go back. So now that's looking at it in retrospect, right? But this is what it looked like as we were happening, right? So in our startup phase, like Mark said, is bootstrapped. My business partner had a camera and a computer and knew how to edit and make films, and I had some savings that I made from making money and doing finance and real estate, and so I didn't work. I quit my job and I worked for free for 2 years, lived off my savings, right? He was a filmmaker. He was doing work in the community, so we leveraged the relationships that he had and leveraged the relationships that I had in the business community to be able to get our foot in the door, to be able to pitch to whoever would listen to us. We got laughed out of the room numerous times. Like, you guys are crazy, you guys don't have any money, like how are you gonna overcome the capital expenses to do a TV station? And people thought we were nuts. So getting our foot in the door allowed us to find early adopters and supporters. We found that at Kamema Schools with Ann Botticelli. She was at the time the director of communications. She had worked with my business partner at KITV because he was a news shooter. And she listened to us because they had a problem of how to get their content to the community. So right there, boom, first partnership. Basically gave us the funding to start our business. So what we did with Kamema Schools is we prototyped. We went to Oceanic, and Oceanic at the time was looking for people to help grow this new video on demand concept. And we're like, we'll do it, we got content, and we got the $10 billion trust with us who wants to support and figure this out. So we took some of the content that Kamema Schools had, we uploaded it on a very rough video on demand platform, and we sent letters out to every Oceanic customer in 96792 zip code, because we knew there were plenty of Hawaiians over there. And we said, hey, go check out this channel, fill out this survey, and see what it's like. And so that was our way to prototype and market test. And the feedback that we got from that is what got us our contract with Kamema Schools. So we took that contract and we were able to buy a couple more cameras and hire a person to help us because we weren't making any money, but we wanted to bring out our capacity. So whatever little money that we did have, we used it to hire somebody to come and work with us who was a filmmaker. And then we got a couple more people, and then we get into this next growth phase. So through the early adopters, one of the other ones that we found was Ahapunana Leo. Their mission is Eola Ko'olelo Hawaii, to revitalize the Hawaiian language. And they realized that, hey, we can do that through media, so they wanted to partner with us. So we partnered with them, because we were a for-profit, we partnered with them on a grant. And that 3-year grant enabled us to buy the edit bays, the video cameras, and start to create content and really establish the channel. But the unique sauce for it for us was we incorporated this. So that grant program basically paid interns to come and work with us for a year. So over the course of that grant, we had 18 interns. At the end of those 3 years, we had hired about 9 of those interns full-time, or at least close to full-time. And throughout this, so this is probably year 1 and 2. This is years 3, 4, 5. by the time we finished our 5th year, you know, we kind of had an established brand and trust in the community, which enabled us to get to the next phase, right? Which is kind of like a plateau. So what we ended up doing, because we now had a brand, we knew how to make content, we were making good content, then we were able to go out and increase our earned revenue capabilities. So yes, we still had some grant funding supporting content creation, but we were also now doing client-driven work where Mema Schools, OHA, Polynesian Voyaging Society, all of these folks who wanted to create media came to us and paid us to do it. But the added benefit was the content that they wanted to create fit onto our channel. So it fed that loop, right? So when you're looking at the strategy, all of this was grounded in a strategy that I showed earlier, right? We knew what we wanted to do. We figured out a way, an impact model. You know, we did the market research, we tested, we refined our product and our solution, we identified goals, and then strategy, activities, or goals, strategies, and activities kind of plays out here. Now, this is a big, how much time we got now? 25 minutes? 15 minutes? Okay, so I'm going to show you guys a tool that you guys can use to start to figure this out for yourself. Okay? So there's a foundation in New Zealand called the Akina Foundation. They came up with this. This is a social lean canvas. It is a modification off of the business model canvas, which is a pretty common tool out there for businesses. But this one has a social enterprise spin to it. So again, look, right? The big idea, it starts up here. Purpose and impact. You gotta answer, so the numbers are the order in which you answer the questions. Again, you guys can get this link that you guys can, or you can go to Akina Foundation's website, and they actually have an online interactive tool for you to answer this and build it out. So, you start here, right? 1, 2, what is your impact? You get your theory of change. Then you start to ask, who are my customers, right? Who do you need to move to make your business model work? Who are the early adopters? So you see how this plays into like what we did with OEV TV, right? Then you come back across this side. Once you know who your customers are, then you start to go, okay, what are the problems that each of them have? And be specific, right? Be specific here. The biggest problem, like for businesses, you ask somebody, who's your customer? Hey, everybody. Who's your customer? Oh, like, you know, it's too general and vague. Like, identify them. So for OEV TV, who's your customer? 3rd-year Hawaiian language student, right? Parent of child who goes to Punana Leo or an immersion. So we identified very specific archetypes for our customers, and we said, okay, what problems do they have? Well, problem for Punana Leo parents or immersion parents, especially if they don't speak Hawaiian, they gotta learn Hawaiian. They gotta learn just enough to support their child's education because they want to invest into it. So what did we do? We created a Hawaiian language learning series targeted specifically for parents of kids who are in immersion. So that's the kind of specificity that you need here in order for the rest of this to work. If you are too vague and broad in your customer segments, you're going to create something that works for nobody. Right? It's better to be specific and wrong than vague, right, and right. Because at least you can test. Right? So then you go here, what are the problems that they have, right? So how do you, then this right here fits in with like what Donovan was talking about, right? What are the unique combination of benefits the product will offer to overcome the problems that they have, right? So for OEV TV, free, on multiple screens, right? The quality of the Hawaiian language and the Hawaiian cultural component that we brought to it was second to none, right? The partnerships, the access. Right? Those are all the things that gave us a unique value proposition that was investable, right? So then that defines what OEV TV was. what our operation is, right? Then you start to build onto that. How are you going to reach your customers? How are you going to actually pay for it? And that was like the startup, growth, stabilization, right? We paid for it in different ways on each as we were moving along that spectrum. And as you move, like, what are the costs? And not just the cost. So like, you need to think about the cost structure at startup, and then you also need to think about what is our cost structure going to look like when we're at scale, right? Measurement and evaluation, key again, right? So this is a great tool. Easy to find, go through it, but also understand that this is a dynamic tool, right? You need to revisit it because you're gonna get something started, you're gonna try it, you're gonna put it in some sort of operation, and you're gonna learn from it. Right? Like I said earlier, there's no way right now you know the answer and the perfect product fit for what you're doing. So this is the iteration. This gives you a frame to be able to understand what you're doing, whether it's successful, and how you can modify it to be more successful. Or quit so you don't die a slow death. Yeah, any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So as you're going through that process, is it backwards then to think that
This one? Yeah.
that you would change your purpose or your impact once you've gone through?
Potentially. That's the hardest one.
Can I interrupt you? Can you say like pivot to answer that question? Like how does a social lean then pivot? Can you answer her? Like explain pivoting in this framework, please.
Yeah, so I mean, you're gonna come up with this, right? If this is not working, you gotta ask yourself why, right? And so maybe it's your strategies, maybe you're measuring the wrong thing. Or maybe the market has shifted, or the problem has shifted, or your understanding of the market has shifted, right? Maybe there's something wrong with your theory of change or transformation, right?
Can you go back to your stack slide for a minute? Because when you talk about pivoting, like the thing that's different here is you're grounded in a purpose and an impact. You're probably not going to pivot off that, or if you do,
Then you're kind of like you rarely will.
you're not going to move from that. 'Cause that's
Yeah,
your purpose.
unless something has dramatically shifted in the ecosystem, you're not going to really move off of this. This is like setting your foundation.
So like for me, like my purpose is to get more people reading, and I have this app. Well, it may turn out that this app is wrong. Like people don't want an app for that. And so I may pivot to something else. Maybe I pivot to driving a library book truck, right? So my product and my solution may pivot, but the purpose grounds you. And you don't pivot off your purpose. You pivot off your product and your solution.
See, that's why these feedback loops don't go down there.
Yeah.
So earlier you were saying that there's some things that you look for when you're investing in these projects from an impact investor perspective. Can you talk a little bit more about, more specifically, I mean, I understand the high level stuff, but more specifically, if you were to come to you guys for a project, what types of goals or metrics typically you look for? So I mean, like, you don't have like an X, or do you have an exit strategy, or, you know, like a typical funding, like there's, the funders are looking for an exit strategy so they can make some money. What is it that, if you're doing impact investing, what is it that you guys are looking for?
Impact.
Also, like how many lives are going to be affected by your solution?
Yeah. Can you scale your impact? Is your impact model
And then,
scalable?
what types of, I mean, millions, thousands, I mean, like.
Well, I mean, it's going to be different, right? There's a difference between broad and shallow versus deep and narrow, right? So it's impact is there's no hard and fast rules to it, right? Everybody's going to have a different flavor and appetite. Every investor is going to have a different kind of lens that they're looking for. But again, like if you are clear in this, and this, like, and the investor says, this is a good use of my funds towards the kind of impact that I want to create, then you're going to get funded, right? But then, you know, again, it's also going to depend on what kind of capital you're looking for, right? Like if you're just looking for grants, that's a very different conversation than something like this. This definitely want an exit strategy. Unless it's just making you money hand over fist.
Oil.
Right? So this, they're like, okay, this is 3 years. This is 5 years maybe. Right? And you're gonna deliver impact with 0 financial return. But they're okay with that. Right? That's part of their diversification of their portfolio to do some of this high risk stuff that other people aren't gonna fund because it's gonna help increase the impact to the point where you're scaling.
I was just going to say, and I'd be interested in your take on the social venture world. I don't know it as well, but in classic venture capital, people have this misconception that investors are just like fund ideas. Like, I have this great idea, and they're going to give you $1 million to go build your idea. Like, it doesn't happen like that. They fund things that are already starting to work. It may not work perfectly, but there's a product, maybe you have some initial metrics, maybe you have some initial revenue, but generally they don't fund ideas. They fund things that are actually happening. So that's why those metrics are so important. That's going to be a question.
Yep.
Like, your average investor, how many outreaches do you get a day? Probably 10 a day, right? Yeah. So he's looking for ways to say no. He's not looking for ways to say yes. He's looking for ways to say no. And if you don't have those metrics, okay, on to the next one. So that's what I think that's really what it's about, is somehow, by hook or by crook, getting yourself to those first results.
So results, so they're taking an idea to actual results, a lot of time is here. They will fund ideas here, but sometimes they'll be funding a program, right? And then, so for us with HIR, one of the questions we really focus to ask people is, are you a program or are you an enterprise? Right? There's a difference, right? And enterprise is something that is scalable. It's its own thing. You know, it's an idea. It can sustain itself. Like a program is something that's just going to be grant funded, philanthropy funded. You know, maybe it has some earned revenue in tuition or fees, but for the most part, it's just a program. It's not an enterprise.
So do you see a lot of grant money going to programs?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's where they go, right? And so you could partner with somebody to test your idea, right? Right? So her foundation is going to test this idea of a farm to preschool educational model, and she's going to learn from it. And if it turns into something that can be an enterprise, then it'll be an enterprise. But right now, it's an idea. And so it's going to get funded here. And if it does turn out and it's successful and there's a revenue model and, you know, it makes sense, then, you know, maybe she can go and ask for some debt to scale it.
So somebody who has started with a product and worked its way backwards to the purpose, you got any advice or?
Just be open-minded and have people who will give you really honest feedback to help you to figure out that purpose and impact model. If you're locked into your product and service, right, it's gonna be a tough road. If you're a social enterprise. If you're really true up. Any other question? Sorry, it's a lot, but go use the social link canvas. It'll help you guys tremendously. And if you guys ever need help or have questions, pretty easy to get a hold of.
What methods are you using to measure impact? What methods or what sources do you have, or what tools are you using to measure some of these social or environmental indicators?
One of the things that is really kind of taking hold in the industry is the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So there's 17 goals that were identified by the UN. A lot all the impact world is taking these and using these as kind of high level frameworks. But then once you start to get down to kind of the more granular level, it's really going to depend on what impact you're trying to create. There's no formula or recipe. It's, you know, it's something you have to figure out. Like here in Hawaii, there are some regional ones that people are using, Aloha Plus Challenge, different types of policy stuff that the state is trying to achieve, whether it's like local food production, you know, renewable energy. You know, they have all these policy goals that they're trying to do. Those are some other things that you could target. There's education goals. So the more that you can align to established metrics, the better, because people are speaking the same language. But then you're also going to have your own unique ones that make the most sense for your impact.
Where does Hawaii Investment Ready focus their impact on?
Hawaii Investment. So our goal at Hawaii Investment Ready is to strengthen the impact ecosystem in Hawaii. So impact investing in Hawaii is still very nascent. Hawaii is a very conservative business environment, to say that nicely. And very much have been stuck in the for-profit, non-profit binary, but impact is this whole area in between. So the kind of tools that are out there for investing in impact are still kind of being adopted here. So Hawaii Investment, one of the founders of Hawaii Investment Ready is a global impact investor, and so she knew that Hawaii needed to get onto this game, so that's why she came to start the program about 6 years ago. And so initially it was just about helping social enterprises develop capacity so that they would be ready to be invested in. But through that process learned that the investors in town were not ready for that. They didn't understand that. So now there's two parts of the equation. One is the capacity building and relationship building on the enterprise side. So we'll call that the demand side of the impact investing equation. And then on the supply side of the impact investing equation are the philanthropists, the investors, the foundations, the people who are funding impact in Hawaii, is to provide them education, capacity building, and network building so that they can start to develop best practices, learn from the outside what's working, build the relationships and trust so that they can start to do some deals. And then hopefully we start to connect these guys with these guys to do more deals in impact in Hawaii. And then at the high macro level is if we are creating more impact investing deals in Hawaii, then we are starting to address the social and environmental problems that we face. So our theory of change for Hawaii Investment Ready is, accelerating social impact investing in Hawaii through capacity building and network building and relationship building, right? So at the lowest level, it's about doing workshops and the accelerator program and all those things. And at the kind of medium level, it's like getting these enterprises and these funders together to do more deal flow. And if we achieve that, then we're creating impact towards social and environmental problems. So to complicate the theory of transformation thing is it also needs to be nested at different altitudes and time scales. So the low altitude is kind of the things that happen over and over, the outputs of your work. At the medium level is kind of like a little longer time frame. And then at the highest level is the big impact for generating. But we only had an hour, so. Huh?
We'll give you a couple more on the call.
Yeah. Right on. That was the first time I did that presentation. Got some things to work on. Yeah, I'll leave this up for you guys.